Well, Michael, now you're on the podcast.
All right.
So I wanted to take this time and personally welcome you to Aaron's show and say that I really, really appreciate your patience. We've been waiting for a while. We've been trying to get this done, and I'm so glad that today I figured this out and we can get this right going. So, Michael, why don't you start out by basically, and I want you to really tell a story of basically your life. So we can record for as much time as we need, about 55 minutes, but we can do other sessions until we get all of your story told the way you want to tell it. So why don't you start out and basically, introduce yourself to the audience and basically tell us from the beginning, basically the beginning of your life, your childhood, and kind of slowly meander through it and walk us through it. And I'll ask interesting questions along the way. Go.
All right. Oh, my name is Michael Munn, and I was born and raised in China for 14 years. And you know, China is a country that is that has been through many historic events, and it's like 5,000 years old. And I came to US when I was like 14 years old. That's a great transition for me at that point. And while I was in China, excuse me, I actually learned how to read and write in Braille. And I didn't go to school until I was like 8 years old. So I had a late start on my school experience. And when I turned 11, I was honored to go to the School for the Blind, the Beijing School for the Blind, which is the top rated school one of the top rated school in China, where there are like 200 plus students there. And in 2014, my dad's station is up in working at Department of Defense in China. So I moved to US, and I am currently living in Berryville, Virginia, with a bunch of farm animals in a 7-acre farm. So that's about my story.
Excellent. Good. Well, really good. I adore animals, by the way. I love animals with all my heart. What animals do you have on your farm?
Oh, on my farm we have like 2 horses, 1 mule. Which mule is a animal that's mixed between a horse and a donkey.
Right.
And we have sheep, a lot of sheep, goats, and 4 cats and 3 dogs.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Excellent. Cool. Well, that's wonderful. So can you go back and tell our listeners something? When was the first time in your life that you realized that you could not see and that you realized that you are blind? When was the first time you kind of realized it?
I kind of was born naturally blind because
right. But you see, I suppose the question that I'm digging at here is, can you tell us when was the first time that you understood that you are blind?
Oh, when I was in China at a orphanage, and they keep asking, hey, they keep waving their hand at me, and I just they said, hey, can you see what's in front of my hand? And I just said, no, I can't, and that's the point that they called me blind. But in China there's a very offensive word for blind when you actually have this disability. So
I see. So yeah, and this is a really interesting and a very saddening fact, but I think that our listeners would need to be educated and need to know about this. So, if you do not mind, I mean, what can you tell us about the reality of being blind in China, the prospects in life, the attitude, the whole, the reality of being blind in China? What can you tell us?
in China, if a person is blind, then sighted world think that it must been a curse from God, that it must been a crime that you committed in your previous life. So God is punishing you this way,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to live with that. And
Right.
people who are blind in China have no right to speak up because they are considered second class citizens.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So often, I really loved that answer, Michael. Very, very well done. Oftentimes, a lot of people in the NFB, and for our listeners, let me just tell you, listeners, that's the National Federation of the Blind. And a lot of times, Michael, as you've probably heard, the NFB always says, we're sick and tired of being treated like second class citizens here in America. What do you think about that? Do you think there's any validity, meaning any uh, do you feel that, in all honesty, American people who are blind, do you think us Americans who are blind, are we really treated as second class citizens? I'm asking because it is sort of a rhetorical question in your case, in your like how you grew up and everything in China, but I'm asking for kind of your opinion. Do you still think that even in America, blind people are treated as second class citizens? What do you think?
It really depends on where you at
It's a
and
really good
how
answer. Yeah.
you're dealing with, you know,
It, outstanding.
yeah,
Outstanding response. It's really a matter of how you are dealing with it. Exactly. Michael, that was perfect. So it's really a matter on how the blind person perceives the society around them, basically.
yes,
I see.
yes,
I see. But as a whole, though, looking at it from a bird's eye view, looking at it from the perspective of both society, American society here in the United States, and the American people who are blind here in the United States, do you still feel like we are treated differently than sighted people in the United States? What do you think?
that's better than China.
Okay. Yeah. Right. And I agree. So I was only asking you, Michael, so that you could educate the listeners. Of course, I had to clarify. Of course, obviously that's obvious information to me. But I think that one of the things that you have to you have probably noticed this in your life here in the States, but Americans do not always have a lot of knowledge about China. And anything that we do know about China is oftentimes not true. So I appreciate you clarifying that fact for us, that in China there's a huge difference in growing
Yes,
up in China than in America. So you definitely feel the difference. Do you feel different in now that been living in the States for a few years? Do you feel a sense of difference as a whole?
right. Actually, I feel way different because in China, that people can basically, when you can basically make fun of your disability in public, and in United States, they're not allowed to do that.
Well, they do though. No, but in the United I respectfully disagree a little because I feel that in the United States, I feel like I have been made fun of in public places before. And I think people in America have been disrespectful to me because of my blindness. Perhaps certainly not in the same way that they would be in China. Absolutely not. There's a huge difference, as you're telling us. But I still
Yeah,
feel like people are still ignorant and still grossly disrespectful in the United States. It's not the same as what you're saying it is in China, and I agree with you, but I still think there's a problem in the United States for sure. Hmm. Yeah,
yes, they
yeah,
are.
yeah. So another interesting thing that I want to learn more about, and our listeners want to learn more about, is what's this school for the blind business? So, guys, a lot of times in America and in China, but in a lot of countries around the world, when you're blind, you are sent to a school for the blind. I was never sent to one. I was sent to a public school in the United States my entire life. I'm not terribly knowledgeable about what goes on in schools for the blind. So, Michael, can you tell us about that? Can you tell us about the school for the blind in Beijing? Tell us all about it.
Oh, the Beijing School for the Blind
Yes.
actually
Yes.
is
Beijing
one
School
of
for the
the,
Blind.
yeah, the Beijing School for the Blind is one of the top-rated school in the United States. Shanghai School for the Blind and Guangzhou School for the Blind and Nanjing. So these schools actually have better funding, so they get better resources. And in that school, we learn almost all the same curriculum as decided as
Mm-hmm.
the public school student in near us. And except all the curriculums are modified to fit our need.
Mm. Okay. Well, good. So I'll tell you that on a personal level, I do not know much about China. So can you tell me, and can you tell Aaron Show and our listeners? So what do children learn in China? Just based on your memory, if a child walks into a classroom and you're 8 years old and the teacher tells you to sit down, what would you know about the world, and what would you be taught in a school in your average school day in China?
Oh, they taught things that's way harder than American student learns. Like for your first grade, you are expected to know all the math, all the basic math. For your first
Mm-hmm.
and second and third grade, you are expected to master for mathematics. You are required to master all the basic math. And for your fourth and fifth and sixth grade, that
Mm-hmm.
you know the student began to enter intermediate math, and up until middle school and high school they learn advanced math. And for Chinese, like when you for characters, China is a character language country.
Right. Well, so you can say Mandarin is what we call it in English. So Mandarin,
Yeah,
well, it's a language that you use characters to express the written thought. Right.
yeah, and students are required to master the 2,000 common
Mm.
characters with before they enter middle school.
Right. So how do children go about doing that? How do you master the characters?
For sighted people, not us blind people, we have a Chinese in China. We have a separate growth code for us. But for sighted people, they just read and read, or use an alternative to help them memorize called pinyin, which is similar to which basically spell the characters in English letters.
Mm-hmm.
So they
I
use
I see. Good. Good. And that's really interesting. So then, how did you learn the characters? How do they teach
oh
the blind people to learn them? Mm-hmm.
they taught blind people Braille in the school for the blind, and like I said, the first grade you are required for the first grade first semester you have to know all the 55 uh, Chinese similar to pinyin, but it's mixed the characters and the pinions. So you're required to master that. And for the second semester of the first grade, the student began to learn to read text in Braille until middle school, where they learn more advanced math and
Mm-hmm.
Chinese, yeah, Mandarin.
Good, good, good. So today, if you meet Chinese people today, do you still keep up with your spoken Mandarin skills? Do you still
Oh,
speak it today?
yes, I have my Mandarin skills or maintained since 2014.
Good, good. Hmm. So, but do you still feel like you need to take Mandarin lessons today, or are you still able to speak your native language perfectly?
I'm still able to speak my native language without any trouble.
Good, good. That's great. That really fascinates me, as a teacher, because usually what happens actually is when people move to a new country, your brain never forgets the first language, but it kind of stops. It kind of gets kind of folded away in a folder inside your brain, and you have to kind of pull it up again slowly. So you kind of do lose it over time if you don't constantly maintain it. So it's really interesting. Mm.
Yeah.
Um, so do you network with other Chinese people? Are you in any like groups on social media where you can just have conversations just to maintain your language? Do you do that often?
Yes, I have some friends that I contact over this software called WeChat.
Ah, indeed. Okay. So good. So then that's really good because WeChat is a Chinese company. Is it similar to Twitter? It's like the combination of Twitter and Facebook, right?
So it's a combination between Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp, and FaceTime.
Okay. So it's the everything. It's
Yes,
everything you could ever want.
yes, and including they added in that app they have like way you can pay other people.
Well, well, then it's perfect, right? If you can
Yeah,
take someone else's money, I'll download that thing. That's great, man. That's great. If you can take people's money, that's a good app to have. Okay,
that you
good.
can pay using that app without bringing your credit
Cool.
card. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a common push now. In Europe, a lot of people use Apple Pay
yes,
for these types of things. Yeah, it's a big push. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's cool. That's really good, Michael. That will serve you very well in your life to maintain your L1 like that. That really interests me. Yeah. hmm
yeah.
Cool. Cool. Good. Um, okay. So at the School for the Blind, we have that you learn these subjects. Um, what about besides the subjects? What other types of skills did they either encourage you to learn or that they taught you at the School for the Blind? What do you think?
They have a bunch of elective class that a student can take, such as
Mm.
learn how to write on a brailler, which in China is not everyone had a Perkins. It's that machine is like a sacred. So we learn how to type on a or braille on a Perkins brailler, and how to play chess. And
Mm.
they have a good music programs where I learn how to play the Chinese flute.
Ah. Now you know that for many years of my life I played the European flute, a silver flute for a very long time.
I play that too.
Oh, real good. Good. Very nice. Can you play the national anthem of China on the flute?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good. Good. That's very, very good. Our last guest on the show was a woman from Jamaica, and she sung the Jamaican national anthem. So I know I did not prepare you for this one, but if you had your flute out, I would want you to play an anthem, or I would want you to play the song on the Chinese flute. That fascinates me. Yes.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's really good, really good. But now let's kind of get a little bit more serious and talk about some things that are slightly more controversial. So I think you mentioned it before that the School for the Blind there um, they focus some of their attention on training people how to be a masseuse. Can you tell me more about that, and can you tell me what your opinion is about that?
Hmm. See.
Or
Yes.
okay. Oh, okay. Well, no, no. And by the way, if you do not want to answer, you don't have to answer that question if you don't want to. It's okay. Um, let's see. Okay. So, what other things did you do? What other experiences did you have? At the School for the Blind.
Oh, at the school for the blind,
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes the students can actually take advantage of each other because I,
Hmm.
of course, was from an orphanage, and they make fun of me because they have family, and when I
Oh.
when I do something wrong with you know that displease him, that displeases them, they can actually tell to their family, and their family can get hold of me. But if they did something wrong on me, I have nowhere to complain. So that's one thing that's different
It's very
in Europe.
sad. It's
Yeah.
incredibly saddening and incredibly important. Yeah. That's really interesting. Can you give me kind of illustrate an example of something that they would complain about, though?
Oh, such
Can
as
you?
if I borrow one of their possessions and I forgot where did I put them, then they will report that to their family and they will, you know, ask me where the thing is at, and they provide.
That is so sad. That is so disgraceful. So they would accuse. So they're obnoxious and disrespectful enough to take advantage of the fact that you grew up in an orphanage. So then they'll accuse you of being a thief,
Yes.
basically. That
Yeah.
that is so that is so unacceptable. It is so disturbingly unacceptable that they would do that. That doesn't surprise me. But I've observed, and it's kind of true, that people in China and people in India and some countries in Asia tend to be very superstitious about certain things. So it's not okay when people believe these things and are silly like that. But I've noticed this to be somewhat true. Yes, that's that's very 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 concerning. Um, so how would you solve the problem though? Like, so they complain to their parents, but then do the parents ever like call you and like complain, like harass you, or how would it manifest itself? Meaning, how would it kind of get resolved?
Of course, their parents are nice enough to me at first, and if I couldn't find the object, then they just tell the student that it went missing, so they get a new one.
Right. And the sick irony, Michael, in all this is that all of you at that school for the blind are blind. So, you can only complain so much. If none of you can see, you can only blame so much, you know? I
Yes.
mean, that's so unacceptable. I mean, yes, of course it's annoying if you lend someone something and they lose it, but that's not because you're a thief, it's because you're a person, and sometimes people just lose things. I mean, wow, it doesn't surprise me, but that's still mind-boggling to me. I mean, it's not mind-boggling to me in a sense, but it's really 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 fascinating. Yeah, yeah. Um, so what types of objects would you borrow? Because in the United States we're sensitive about borrowing things. So what would you borrow in China?
Oh, sometimes I will usually borrow slate and stylus from them, and I couldn't find it, so they would just complain to their parents, and
Okay, that's just trivial. That's just silly stuff. That's just obnoxious. A slate and stylus, something that can fit in your pocket, that literally costs like, I don't know, a couple bucks. Just buy a new one and forget about it. It's so easy. Who cares? I mean, I thought they were borrowing something of importance. You know, that's just weird, man. That's strange. Hmm.
yeah, that is very strange. I
Does it seem, now that you're living in America, does it seem inappropriate and seem strange to you now, even stranger now that you're living in America?
and if I lose something in America, I would try my best to find them because I still have that instinct on me that if I lose the things, then that is a way, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
big deal.
That's it. That's interesting. So it still impacted you. So you still feel that guilt. So the
Yeah.
guilt of loss would overwhelm you. That is really fascinating. Wow. Wow. Well, that's so yeah. So what about like in the school for the blind? What if a student like misbehaved or did something bad? Like, is there discipline at the school for the blind?
Oh yes, discipline is that if you're if you misbehave, they don't do corporal punishment on students. They use alternative methods such as confiscate item that's important to you, such as your phone or your computers.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they will have lunch detentions that
Mm.
when you don't do your homework, a student will the teacher will ask the student to extend it a couple minutes and talk to the teacher until the lunch is halfway over, and the student
Right.
may go into the cafeteria, and sometimes they can find hardly anything to eat but soup.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I would expect. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm. That's strange. That's strange, and that's all very informative and all very interesting. And at the um, in the cafeteria, or actually, a better question is: so how is this school for the blind like laid out? Like, is it like a campus, like a university with like dorms to live in, or is it like apartment buildings? Like, what does it look like?
Oh, that school for the blind was built in 1874 by a missionary in from Scotland, and it was a school that's built in European style, and it's like a regular school for the blind in America, where they have a dorm and three instruction buildings, and
Hmm.
one cafeteria.
So, today, about how many students do you still think are attending there?
Last time I knew that there were 400 students.
Oh, only 400?
Yes,
Oh, wow. Okay, that's an awfully low number. Huh. That's not what I was expecting. That's even smaller than my high school. Okay. Hmm.
yeah.
I see. I see. Hmm. So, at the school for the blind, who was did you have a favorite teacher?
Oh, yes. My favorite teacher was actually my flute teacher.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we he taught me a lot of skills on that flute.
I see. Very good. And do you still keep in touch with him today?
No, because I when I plan to leave the state to the China and go to the state, and I was too busy packing, and I missed my flute lesson that day. So it's time to.
So you could have gotten to the United States and we chatted the guy and say, "Oh, hi, Mr. So and so. So sorry I didn't say goodbye to you. I missed our lesson because I was packing."
Yes, that was. I found that very hilarious. Yeah,
We're going to have to write this down. Oh man. That is just hysterical. I mean, Michael, you could I'm sure the guy is on WeChat. I mean, I'm positive he is. You should WeChat him, really, and say, "Oh, sorry, I was packing."
yeah, I should.
Oh my God. Oh, that's okay. That's material that we're looking for on this show. That is just bizarre. Oh God! Oh God! I was going to ask you what was the funniest thing that a teacher ever said to you at the school for the blind, but your story of missing your last flute lesson was way better. So okay, I'll still ask you, what was something funny that a teacher did in China, or you know, did a teacher ever say like a joke or something? Did they ever do something funny that like the students laughed? Did they ever do that in China?
No, the teachers are too serious when they really get into teaching.
Right, right. But even when they're serious, occasionally I would imagine that because people are people, I would imagine that they say something kind of amusing or kind of funny, at the same time. Did they
Yeah.
when you were, taking these classes, I mean, this just fascinates me, Michael, when you were taking these classes at at the school at the school for the blind. um uh what was I going to say? When you were taking the classes, um hmm, totally lost my question. Totally lost my train of thought. Hmm. What was the most? That was odd. What was the most? What was the most unusual thing that? Oh, I got it. In China, did the teachers ever tell you about their own lives, about where they grew up, who they are, where they're from in China? Did they ever share that with you?
Oh yes,
Oh, they did. Oh,
that
that's interesting.
yeah, that one day I forgot my money to buy a meal card to get food from the cafeteria, and one of my main teachers got hold of me because a student reported that I have not been eating for you know 3 square meals already, and the teacher got on to me and said, "Hey, why aren't you eating?" And I said, "Oh, I forgot my meal card." And and she asked, "Why aren't you borrowing and then return and pay back?" And I just said, don't I don't like to borrow money. And she said, I was from a village, and when I attend college, I relies on my relative to lend me money. And how do I pay back? I do that when I pay back when I work.
Excellent. So that was a really good answer. So that was a really good life lesson. That it's not funny, but it's a really good life lesson that person taught you. That's a really valuable lesson. That sometimes you have to ask for help in life.
Yeah, and she also said that money is not important. It is important, but you can't keep it forever. So if you got to borrow money, then you borrow it.
Right. That's true. It's a really, really good life lesson, Michael. I completely agree with that lesson. That sometimes once in your life or once in a great, great while, sometimes you do have to ask, hey, I need help, man. Sometimes you do have to say that. And they taught you that skill. That's really good. That's really good. Cool. Cool. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm fascinated by these. I might be asking silly questions, but I'm just really fascinated by it. So when you go and eat a meal in the cafeteria, what would they give you for food? What was your average breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Oh, see, so you can eat like unlimited of meal, but usually the parents, when they put money in the card, they set budget that you can eat for this week. So for breakfast, I usually Chinese version of pancake, which is uh, I don't know how you. It's similar to naan.
Is it similar to? Are you saying it's similar to naan bread?
Yes, with
That okay? I know. Yeah,
scrambled
that I
egg.
know. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's a
with
bread.
yeah, with with scrambled egg in the middle,
Mm.
and uh, soy milk for breakfast. And for lunch, I eat like rice mixed with veggie and meat.
Mm.
And for supper, I ate the same thing, except different type of rice,
Mhm.
veggies. So I was, for a day, I usually can eat like 5 Chinese yuan.
Mm. I see. I see. So, what was your impression? I mean, these other blind children at the school, these other blind guys at the school, did they just, were their parents just giving them things a lot? Were they being given money? Were they like carrying around a lot of money a lot? I mean,
So before they enroll in the school for the blind, they're issued a meal card and a card that you can use in libraries and stuff like that. But they put money in that card so you can get food from the store and
mm-hmm.
you know food from the
Mm.
windows where they serve food.
I see. I see. Interesting. And what would you like? What would they serve for drink? Would they give just tea and coffee and water and stuff like that? What would they give to drink?
They usually have they have some bottled drinks, but most people choose to drink the soup that they provide for free from a big copper pot that's the size of a swimming pool, except it's like uh much round instead of wide.
I see. I see. So they would drink like a broth, is what it was, a
Yeah,
broth.
yeah, broth with egg drop in it, similar to the egg drop soup.
Okay. So either you would have to have the money for the bottled drink, or you could just sort of sip the broth.
Yeah,
Hmm. I see. I see. What about like what about like a bottle of water? Could you find that?
yeah, but yes, that bottle of water costs only like 1 Chinese yuan or RMB, but some
Hmm.
people still choose to, or me, I don't know about some people, but I still prefer drink the broth because you can actually mix the broth with rice and you get the salted flavor and
Hmm.
the egg drop in it.
I see. I see. Mm-hmm. Good. Good. So, Hal, tell us now about the day that you discovered that you would be moving to the United States. How did that come about?
See, at April, I still remember the date was like, let me see, it was like uh, around April, the day April 16th, which is a Tuesday, uh, around that 15th and 6th or 16th. I was like doing my regular stuff, routines until and then I was called to an office, and usually in China, when you got called to speak individually by a teacher or some kind of that sort, that means you're in
Yeah.
trouble.
Oh,
And I
in the
I was
United
like,
in the United States too. Anytime that you grew up in the States, in my generation, in the 90s, and if you came home from school and your parents said Miss Smith called, it was never good. They only called when you did something bad or when something bad was happening.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's the same problem that I faced,
Mm-hmm.
where I got called and speak individually, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. So I followed the person who you know uh, delivered the message to me and to the area where they have a lot of couches, and said, you know, you are soon to be moved to the state, and tomorrow you are going to your birthplace, which is you know 3 hours away from from Beijing, and get your passport. And that then at that point, I was like, oh Jeez, that's not bad. I'm glad that I'm not in trouble so far.
That was even better than the flute teacher story. Oh my God, that's Michael. You go about life in just a hilarious way, in a very endearing and a very hilarious way. I see now. Okay, what was your emotion when you kind of started to realize in your mind, wait a minute, I'm going to get to be an American. I'm going to get to live in the United States. What was going through what was going through your mind when you came to that discovery?
I was like, I did not do what other people did. Like they usually shock and couldn't speak for a couple of minutes. But
Hmm.
I just very calm because I know a lot of friends who moved to the state and had a better life than than what they had when they're in China. So
Okay.
I did not I wasn't in a shock, and I was like very glad that I heard this very out you know outstanding news for me.
I see. I see. That's interesting, huh? So you were just overwhelmed with a sense of calm, a sense of resolution, I guess.
Yes, you know
Huh.
I
Really
have
fascinating.
I have a lot of friends who moved to America from China, and they
Right.
end up having a pretty good life.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So let's backtrack a little. So in your contacts in China, I mean, surely, you are very blessed and very lucky to have the opportunity to live in the United States now. But surely there are other blind people in China who have to live in China their whole life. So, what do you suppose, and tell our listeners, what do you suppose they end up doing with their life? After the school for the blind, what would the options have been or are? Well, what do you think?
The those blind people, if they go to the school for the blind and receive career trainings, they the possible job that they can take is piano tuner and a massage therapist.
Right.
Like
So,
for those
right.
people who did not receive trainings, then their life either going to be in a beggar, or if their or their family have to support them for the
Right.
rest of their lives.
Right. Right. I see. I see. So now let me ask you. So let's say, for example, that you're blind and you're in China and you do complete the training to be a piano tuner. Do you think they actually pay you? I mean, do you think they really help the person to get that job and really, do you think they really pay the blind people if they do that job?
So they would pay them, but like very little amount of money,
Okay.
minimum
So,
wage.
well, so kind of no is kind of the answer. It's almost no.
Yeah, they pay you, but not enough to
Right.
live live on.
Not enough to, right. So basically, regardless or either way, you would still be you would still have to live with a family member your whole life, probably.
Yeah, yeah,
I see. I see. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I know.
In China, is there any social security system to your knowledge?
No, not that I'm aware of, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah, no, they don't have
China,
any.
China has a rich history, as you've told us, with the country that had the first civil service exam ever was in China. So they've had a civil service since the 1300s. And probably longer than that, but I'm surprised that they don't have any social security.
No, they don't
That
have.
that's strange, huh?
Yeah, people who have this, they have something equivalent to this to Social Security that the Chinese that this people with disability have to apply and
Right.
that be approved. and it takes a long time to get that request approved.
I see. I see. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, that is interesting. So, where was your hometown? Do you know where you were born? And do you want to tell us?
Oh, I was born in a province called Hebei, which is where it's like 6 hours off of Beijing, north. And I was born in a city called Chengde, which is like 6 hours, and is where a lot of a place that has a lot of graves, and one of one of the emperor or the Qing dynasty emperor
Hmm.
had their summer palace there.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me. At the School for the Blind. So what did you do in the summer? Was it a year-round school, or were you off in the summer months?
We're off 2 months in the summer and 1 month in the winter.
I see. I see. Hmm. So, and what would you do on those vacations?
We were basically on our own, like people who have families uh, can stay home for a month or two with their families until September the 1st. And I'm like people who are foreign birth, so I basically stay in China with my parents until the station is up, and that's how I spend my summers and winter breaks.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see. Would any of those students have been able to, invite you over to their home for a weekend or something? Did they ever do that?
Now they don't do that because they live like 3 hours away from the school for the blind, so it's a boarding school, so they live there
Right.
like six nights.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah. So
I
like
see.
from yeah Sunday night
Mm.
till Friday morning, and they
Hmm.
go home Friday afternoon.
Right. Interesting. Very, 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 very fascinating. Yeah. Hmm. Um, so what was the process that you had to go through to to come to so you went back to your hometown, and you got your you got your American passport or Chinese, which what exactly did you have to do? That's not really clear. So why did you have to go back to your birthplace?
Because I was born in Chengde. That's where my in China there's a similar thing called that database called Hukou. That's
Mm,
where my Hukou is at. So I have to go there and get the passport, enable to exit China, to leave China and go to the state.
right, right. So at this point, were you able to have a United States passport, or were you applying to have a China passport?
In I am a American citizen.
Yes, I know. Yes, of course. Right. But
Yeah.
at the time, were you applying when you went to this place? Were you applying to have to get to pick up an American passport or a Chinese one?
A Chinese passport to get the visa to go to the United States.
Ah, okay. Okay, got it. Got it. So you needed to get your Chinese passport to get the American visa stamp so that you could go to the United States in the first
Yes,
place.
yes,
Right.
yeah. That's
I
how it
see.
works. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Um. So now, as I said before, you do not need to answer this question. Um. When were you introduced to your adoptive family?
Oh, that's a good question.
Hmm.
I have to share that. Uh, it was like April 25th, which is a Friday.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Friday, April 25th. And they they both came, and they came to my going away party and the orphanage, sang song for them, and basically played my progress on the TV like a slideshow. So it was pretty amazing how it's a very big going away party.
Right. Huh. Wow. I see. I see. And but so how were you introduced to your adoptive family in the States?
Oh, like they actually met me in China because I Skyped with them the first. Uh, I Skyped with them 3 hours from 9 till 12, and then before they came to they actually came to China.
Huh. Okay. So then, were you able to speak English with them when you Skyped with them the first time?
Yes. Before I go to the state, I already have my English like halfway down. Like I'm almost mastered my English.
Oh, good. Huh. Okay. And what was your perception of them when you were Skyping with them? What did you think of those of them?
See, I was like I don't know ask them questions that I think of because at that point I was obsessed with technology and at that point it was big news that the Malaysian airline MH370 was miscontact or is missing. So I was like, do any of Boeing and the black box or are we gonna ride on the Boeing? So I was like asking these questions.
Is this the first interview you've ever done like this? Because
No.
this is hysterical and fascinating. This is this is this is really it. This is interesting. So, Jay, you didn't. So you were more concerned with the airplane that you would be flying on? Well,
I was obsessed with technology at that point. I just learned when I was like 2 months until my birthday, which is or almost 3 weeks to be exact. So 3 weeks until my birthday. So I was like almost 14, and I just learned how to browse the web on a Windows XP computer.
Right. So
So
obviously, right, I agree with you. So the first thing anyone would do when they browse the web is review crash reports and safety reports of Malaysian airliners. That's exactly where you should go on the internet. Of course, right? Right? Obviously.
Yes. Yeah. That's it
That's
was like
normal,
March
right?
8th when I was mopping the floor that I heard something on TV vaguely about a plane. And at night, I was watching my nightly news, and I heard that the plane went missing in 5 o'clock in the morning, Beijing time, and 3 hours later, the plane got canceled because at that point, at 5 o'clock in the morning, the plane was disappeared on the radar, and at the Beijing Capital Airport, the display shows that the plane got a little delay. And
you know what? Okay. This is starting to circle back to me now. I think the part that you slightly omitted from this hysterical and sad and interesting story, by the way, is that a lot of those passengers on that particular Malaysian plane were Chinese citizens.
yeah, they're
Okay, Michael,
workers.
please. Okay, Michael, I'm sorry. Let's stop. Let's stop and pause right there. Hold on for me for just 1 second.